What's up everybody, it's Dan here, and I have a recipe today to share with you guys that I'm really excited about. I actually just got back from the gym. I had a killer back workout, and so I was inspired to share my recipe for guilt-free chocolate chip cookies with you guys. Now, some of you might say that this recipe isn't completely guilt-free, but stick with me and I'll show you why I think it is. So what I have here to start with is a bowl with a little bit of melted, unsalted butter and melted coconut oil. And into my bowl here, I'm going to mix some coconut sugar, which looks and acts really similarly to brown sugar, and some baking stevia. So I'm just going to give this a whisk here. And starting with melted butter and melted coconut oil, I find really helps this recipe because it gives the coconut sugar and the stevia a chance to dissolve. I can hear some of you guys saying, coconut sugar is still sugar, right? It is, but it has some stuff that regular white sugar, brown sugar doesn't have, like magnesium, B12, I think there's some zinc in there. It's definitely got some things going for it that white sugar doesn't. So I'm giving this a whisk here. Good. And I'll let that sit for a second. In this bowl here I have some white whole wheat flour. If you guys have never tried white whole wheat flour, you should definitely try it out. It's pretty interchangeable, I found, with all-purpose flour in baking cookies and brownies and things like that. I'm going to add to this some oat flour. You don't have to go out and buy oat flour. All you have to do is put some quick oats in a food processor or a spice grinder, grind it up, and then pass it through a sifter to get out any large lumps, and you'll have oat flour. So to this I'm going to add some baking powder, baking soda, and salt. And since I already got my whisk dirty here, I'm going to reach for this ridiculously large whisk that I never actually use and give my dry ingredients a mix together. And then what I also really like about this recipe is that it has protein in it. So I'm going to add 2 scoops of vanilla whey protein. If there's another type of protein you like, by all means give it a try, see how it turns out. But I would recommend sticking with vanilla protein. I found that chocolate protein powders bake kind of funny, so I would say stick with vanilla. So by adding 2 scoops of protein here, with the protein I'm using, I'm adding about 60 grams of available protein to this recipe. There's also a little bit of protein in the oats and a little bit of protein in the egg. All right, I'll put that back. So back to my mixture here: butter, coconut oil, baking stevia, and coconut sugar. Using the stevia allows me to reduce the sugar in this recipe by 1/3. I think that's pretty awesome. So here I have 1 whole egg, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, and some water. Perfect, so I've just added in my egg, my vanilla extract, and my water. Don't forget the water here. The water is important since we're adding protein powder to this cookie dough. We need the water to hydrate that protein powder. So I'll give this a good mix, and I'm going to whisk it for about a minute. Now that my egg is in here, by whisking I can incorporate some air so the texture of my cookie is going to be nice and chewy and just as delicious as any normal chocolate chip cookie. So I can see that my sugar is pretty much dissolved at this point. I'll set this aside for a second. So now it comes to the question of what type of chocolate we're using in this recipe. You can use normal chocolate chips if you like, but I tend to think that a bittersweet chocolate that has a little less sugar in it is probably a little more guilt-free. So that's what I'm sticking with today. I have about 5 or 6 ounces. I've already chopped some of it up. I'll give it a few more chops. And I think it's really cool when you have a cookie and you have kind of these irregular chunks of chocolate. We have some finer pieces that'll mix in and some larger pieces. No matter what type of chocolate cookie you're making or chocolate chip cookie, I think chopping your own chocolate adds a really nice touch. All right, so I'll set that aside. So now I have my flour protein leavening mixture here. I'm going to switch to a spatula. It'll make the mixing process a little bit easier. I'm going to add in my dry ingredients. Give it a stir. And once it's almost come together, I'm going to add in my chopped chocolate. So in the baking section of the grocery store, you can find these awesome chocolate chips. I believe Ghirardelli makes them, and they're 60 or 65% cocoa. They're really delicious. So check those out if you've never seen them before. All right, so I'll give this one final mix until there's no dry ingredients remaining. already smells so good. So if you'd like to try substituting something else for the stevia, by all means go for it. But I would recommend trying out the coconut sugar if you've never tried coconut sugar before, because it really has a caramely, toffee type flavor to it, similar to brown sugar that I've never really found anywhere else. So coconut sugar all the way. All right, so this has come together pretty well. You'll notice that it does look a bit oily and the chocolate looks a bit oily, and that's just because we started with melted fats. But what we're going to do next, now that this is all mixed, is grab a parchment lined cookie sheet. I've got a cookie scoop. You could use a tablespoon with rounded scoops if you like. You don't need a cookie scoop. And I'm gonna scoop these cookies out onto the tray. And then, really important, want to pop these in the refrigerator or the freezer for about 15 minutes. And they've firmed up, they've chilled down a little bit. And now what I'm going to do is flatten them out just a bit. These won't spread too much in the oven, so I kind of have to give them a head start. So I'll flatten them down until they're about 3/4 of an inch thick, or an inch thick. Make sure they're pretty even. And then what I like to do is give these a sprinkle with a little bit of coarse salt, or kosher salt, sea salt, whatever you want to use, just a tiny bit. That's going to help round out the flavor of the cookie and bring together the flavors of the vanilla, the coconut sugar, the protein powder. I think it's a nice touch. You certainly don't have to do it, but I would recommend you try it out. It's not going to make them taste like salt at all. So I have my oven preheated to 325 degrees. If you're using a convection oven with these cookies, you want to set the fan on low. So I'm going to pop them in the oven, bake them for about 12 to 14 minutes. That was 10 good ones. Alright, so let's check these out here. Okay. So the edges feel nice and set, and the inside of the cookies, I can tell, are no longer liquidy and gooey, so that's perfect. That means they're done. We don't want to overbake these. Alright, so the only thing that's left to do is give one of these a try. I'm telling you guys, I can't even tell that this is a healthier version of a chocolate chip cookie. It's just as gooey and delicious on the inside. It's still a little bit crunchy on the outside. I don't taste the added protein powder at all. I don't miss the white sugar. I don't miss the white flour. That coconut sugar tastes just like brown sugar. There's a nice toffee, toasted caramely flavor in these cookies. And that little bit of salt on top really rounds it out. I could just eat these all day long and not feel bad about it. So you guys definitely have to give this recipe a try. So if you want the full recipe, head on over to my blog, bakingwithdan.com. Make sure you share this video on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel, Baking with Dan, and check us out on Facebook at Baked by Dan. You guys are gonna love this recipe, I promise.